Hi, my name is ROCCO PRESTIA. I play with a group called Tower of Power. In this video, we're going to answer some questions that are frequently asked me about my technique and my approach to the instrument. First, I want to tell you just a little about me. I've been playing with the band for a little over 20 years. Some of my influences go back to the 60s, early 70s. Like James Brown, Sly Stone, the Memphis sound, the Motown sound, players like James Jamerson, Duck Dunn. I consider myself basically a rhythm section player, not a soloist, although I feel like I'm soloing all the time the way I play, but it's always from inside the groove. Anybody who may have heard any records or seen me play live will notice that I'm a pretty busy player. And I just want to make the point that it's okay to be busy, just as long as you don't step on nobody's toes. And with that, let's tune up and get started. Okay, here's a G. Here's a D. Here's an A. And here's an E. The first thing we're going to look at on this video is the right and left hand technique. We're going to start with the right hand first. I use 2 fingers, and I use just this part of the fingers. And I personally use hand cream just for sensitivity to the string, because I've had problems where my fingers would stick to the strings. I position my hand in the middle of this area, not back here because there's too much tension, not up here because it's too much flack. I rest my thumb on the pickup or on the E string for support. And you'll notice I play fairly hard. You'll notice I don't pluck underneath the string and pull it, but I just pluck it firm, alternating constantly, almost all the time. If you dampen out the strings with your left hand like this, you create this percussive sound, or what is called ghosting, where the notes are completely dead. As far as my left hand is concerned, probably the most important thing I do is get this muting sound, where the notes are short and percussive, but you can still hear the tone of the note. And the way I get this is I'll put my second finger down on the note that I want to hear, and putting the rest of my fingers down, the third and fourth. This is the sound that you get. Now if I lift the third and fourth, and then put it down gradually, you can hear the difference. And that's how I basically get that sound. One more thing that makes that sound happen is just from, and that's just with the one finger, just lifting up enough and then just hitting it dead. That would be the ghost note, which is different than muting because there's not really any note there. But those are the two things that make this happen. Okay, so at this point we're going to combine both hands and try this exercise that takes you from the top to the bottom. And with the right hand, alternating both fingers evenly, consistently across the strings. And the left hand's going to do the muting, but it's important to let the tone of the note still ring through. So it'll be like this. And like I said, alternating and making it even and consistent. That's the important thing. Let's try this with 16th notes in the metronome. Just be sure to control the muting with your left hand so the notes don't ring into each other. Let's try it at a faster tempo. A good example of what we've been talking about with the 16th note feel is the tune What Is Hip. It's become kind of a signature tune with the band. Its original concept was derived from the drummer at the time, David Garibaldi. He had this idea for droning on one note. And at the time, I remember thinking, this is not going to work. But as it turned out to be very hip. And I enjoy playing it. You'll notice when I'm playing this line that I'll be playing more than just the root. I'll be playing octaves and adding the minor seventh and other intervals. But we'll get into that later.
A hip bag, but you ain't just exactly sure what's hip. Started to let your hair grow, spent big bucks copping a wardrobe. Some of you know there's much more to the trip.
What is hip?
I said, tell me, do you think you know
What is hip?
that if you're really hip, the past and the years will show you're in a hip trip. Maybe hip in the hip. See with all the right faces. You should be satisfied, still it ain't quite right. Oh,
What is hip?
oh, tell me, do you think you know?
What is hip?
If you really, if the past and the years will show you're in a hip trip. Maybe hip in the hip. Your conscious level. You're striving to find the right road. There's one thing you should know. What's hip today might become passé. Oh, what is hip? Oh, tell me.
There's another tune that we do called Only So Much Oil on the Ground, where the 16th pattern is used, and the approach with the right hand is very similar. It's got more changes. Basically is the only difference, and the thing is to keep the constant 16th thing going.
Sooner than you think, it's gonna be a heavy duty dirt. It won't be too much time for no merriment or mirth. There's always so much oil in the earth. We can't cut loose without their juice.
makes both these tunes unique is the fact that I play every note in the bar. Each 16th note is clearly heard. Now when I approach a tune, especially if it's an up-tempo tune, I don't necessarily play every note, but it is what I feel. Just a constant sixteenth kind of flow under everything. And as far as what gets hit and what doesn't get hit depends on the arrangement and the other instruments that are being used. Depending on the groove, I can pick and choose whatever note I want to hear. Let's start with some ghosted 16th notes, and I'll just press down when I want to hear a note. A good example of this technique is the line I use at the end of What Is Hip. Now you notice I'm setting up a 16th feel with my right hand, and I'm picking and choosing the notes I want to hear with my left hand. Now let's try it with a metronome. You'll notice that I keep my left hand basically in this position no matter where I am on the neck. And the reason I do this is because basically it's the way I learned how to play, and it's the way I've always approached the instrument. What it enables me to do is to get the percussive and muting sound that I'm looking for. And I basically play off of this finger. I will play off of this finger, and I will play this one at times, but almost everything is played off of this finger, with these two fingers giving me the muted sound for whichever note I might be playing on the neck. As opposed to, maybe not the same line, but close. But as opposed to moving my fingers like that is, and that's the way I approach just about everything I do. One of the other things I accomplish by keeping my hand in this position is like going from 1 to 4, A to D, D to G, G to C, is I don't lift my finger to go from 1 to 4. I'll just rock back and forth. It may be difficult to see that I'm doing that sometimes because there's very little movement in my left hand. So what we're going to do is a ride out to What Is Hip again. Let's try something similar with the rhythm section. The chords will be from E sus to E. And I'll start off real basic on the root. And and working to a tune that we do called A Little Knowledge is a Dangerous Thing. And it incorporates the muting and the 16th note feel that we've been talking about. Here it is. A lot of bass lines you play will involve octaves, and that means skipping a string with your right hand. You need to get comfortable with this motion of alternating from the E to the D and A to the G. For me, I rest my thumb on the pickup when I'm going from the E to the D. And then when I move to the A to the G, I rest my thumb on the E string. But you should do whatever is comfortable. That's what's comfortable for me. Here's something you can practice that'll help you with your coordination with your octaves. Let's take the same octave exercise. Let's start from the high note and come down. Now let's take the same thing with 16th notes. Let's start from the low to the high. Let's try that at a faster tempo. Let's do the same thing we did before. Start from the high note and go to the low. There's this tune we used to do called On the Serious Side, and it shows exactly the approach in using the high to low octave as a lead. I'm gonna play it really slow, and then we'll do it up to tempo. And here it is up to tempo. In addition to octaves, I also play a lot of fifths. We can do the same exercises with fifths as we did with the octaves. Let's try the first one. Let's do the same thing, starting with the high note on top. Let's combine these two patterns at a faster tempo, starting from the low to the high on the way up, and from the high to the low on the way down. This next example is based off the root, the fifth, and the octave. The changes are from D to C. Root, fifth, octave. Let's try it with a metronome. Now that we've taken a look at these different intervals, I'd like to go back to what is hip and show you how they're incorporated into the line. We'll start with 16ths in the right hand. And it moves into octaves. Then we go into intervals using the 7, 6, and chromatically. So it sounds like this. Another tune that uses the same idea is You Got to Funkifies. It's in the key of D, and it uses octaves, the minor 7, and chromatic back to the 1. We'll try it slow first with a metronome. Now let's play that up to tempo. When we did the octave exercises earlier, you'll remember we did them both ways, leading from the low to the high and from the high to the low. I'd like to show you the effect you get when you lead with one or the other at a bass line, using a progression, a two-chord progression, A minor 7th to D7, starting from the low to the high first. This time we'll start with the high note, and you'll see how it gives the line a different sense of balance. Now let's mix the two ideas together, and this is what it'll sound like. You might find it awkward changing from low-high to high-low midstream like we just did. That's because the right hand pattern is constantly changing. What works for me is to lead with the first finger when going from low to high, as opposed to leading with my second finger. It's slower and it's very awkward. The same thing applies leading from the high to the low, except I lead with my second finger as opposed to my first finger. It's slower and it is, again, awkward. When you combine the two together, it's naturally very, very uncomfortable to switch between the two in the middle of a line. So you really have to focus on getting your hand in the correct position in order to execute the two of them together. The best way to get comfortable with this is to practice going one direction at a time. Low, high, then high, low, until you get comfortable with it. Then you could try putting the two together. Let's take another look at it. In this next section, we're going to combine the ghosting techniques we talked about earlier with these octave patterns. We'll start with the octaves first. Now we'll add the ghosting notes. I use this a lot because the ghost notes give me a percussive attack to set up the next downbeat. The next example sounds like this. You can also lead with the ghost notes on top and work it into a bass line like this. Now, one of the problems you might run into is the harmonics ringing on the 5th and 7th frets. A way to control that is by using block position, like we talked about before, muting the strings with the 3rd and 4th finger and moving your hand around when you're playing the line. And let me show you what it looks like.